Staff, we are live. Audience, we are live. I'm going to call. Hello, everybody. I'm calling the meeting to order. Hello, everybody. We are live. I'm calling the meeting to order. This is our County of Yountville special study session on Tuesday, September the 16th. I'm calling the meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. Can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Tripp? Here. Councilmember Knight?
Here.
Vice Mayor McKee? Here. Mayor Moeller?
Thank you. Here. Can we get I'd like a motion from the council to adopt today's agenda.
Move to it. Oh, second. Go ahead.
Move adoption of the agenda for this work.
And I'll second. Thank
We
you.
have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? That we just approved the agenda. Do we have any comment from the public that is not related to our study session here today? You can come up to the microphone if you do. Seeing nobody move towards the microphone, I'll close the public comment.
I can.
And yes.
Yeah, just to add that there was no reportable action from the special meeting that we had just before this,
At the closed
from
session.
closed session.
All right, thank you very much, Attorney Bell. And so now we are getting ready for our study session today. I'm going to let the town staff kick us off, but it's going to be our kind of our typical study session forum. If you've been to this before, I'm going to ask our town manager to be our Phil Donahue. He'll be going through the audience with microphones and getting questions that may be directed towards I'll let him decide the staff or the council, and he can run that. It's going to be very open. The council, we're not going to use our buttons, and we might chime in, but this is really your meeting to ask questions. You've been very involved so far in a lot of the information we've been rolling out in this next phase of the Commons, so thanks for coming today. Town Manager Ralston, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, community. You took some of my thunder. For those of you who don't know, we adopted a town council handbook in November of 23, which outlines study sessions in terms of the type of meeting, and it says that study sessions are a type of special meeting that is less formal and open to public interaction. And the purpose is to give the council the opportunity to review one or more items in more depth and allow for a dialogue with the community. So no 5 minutes at the mic. It's, for me, the challenge of, figuring out who's next, so I will do my best. I know John's helped me. Sometimes we have two mics going, but it's not too big of a group. And then obviously with the council interacting. So that's kind of the format, and I think it's been an effective format and something that the council really wanted since I got here. And I think we've done it now a number of times. And for those of you that haven't done it, and others of you that I feel like everyone except for maybe someone, I don't want to say the young guy in the back that knows who Phil Donahue is. If you don't, he used to run through the crowd with a microphone and just sort of try to facilitate dialogue. And I think this is a technique, really, more than just the pressure sometimes of coming to the mic and feeling like you're sort of on the stand, if you will. So I'll do my best and make sure you raise your hand and make yourself known. And you can talk more than once too. So you can, hey, I want to on that point, and then I'll also try to look to this side, but. It's also helpful when you all raise your hand and say, hey, I want to say something so I can come back. As much as we need to work through a very, very important and very complicated issue as we talk about the Yountville Commons, the former school site. I'm going to hand it over to Brendan Kelly, who most of you know as our lead designer. He and his wife joined us over a year ago and have really been great in terms of facilitating community dialogue and coming up with a vision, a concept, an idea that you see before you today. If you're able to, you can go to the next slide, chime into the train. This is the schedule for the week. Who's working the slides? Me? You are. Oh. Yeah. Okay, so, first, this is a short video of when we started. I guess I'll replay the videos. This is just.
We are going
about the school
to get a staff report first, talking about approving a resolution and authorizing and directing execution of the purchase and sale of the Yountville Elementary School. With that, Town Manager, you're going to start us off?
I am.
Thank you.
Thank you. And as you see in the agenda, there's actually 2 staff reports. This is the first of 2 that will address the purchase and sale agreement related to the school site here behind me at 6554 Yount Street. It's approximately 6.83 acres. I know everyone in the town is very familiar with it. And just a quick history lesson in terms of the school was closed in 2020 by the district due to declining enrollment. The town and the district have been engaged in talks since that time, sort of off again, on again conversations. Prior to me starting in June of 23, there was a goal-setting workshop that the council had where you unanimously agreed that the school site was the highest priority. It was actually I think it was actually the only thing that got 5 votes at that time. And then more recently, in January of this year, we convened and we had our own goal-setting session, and that was reaffirmed by this council as one of the highest priorities in terms of how we prioritize sort of new initiatives. So obviously clear to staff that this is important, and we've been working hard to get to this point today. Okay, so that gives you back a year and a half when the council directed us to an open escrow, and then a month later we closed and acquired the site. We started working through this timeline, which got us through the interim uses, and we had a series of meetings, many cups of coffee, dinners and conversations, etc. We adopted a resolution in March of this year, which gave direction to, move forward based on a conceptual drawings that were presented. We're now working through the summer and fall, and this was kind of the outline for the week in the rest of this calendar year. So we're now through the first, I think, 5 arrows. And I want to thank everyone for participating. It's been really great to have high level of participation, and specifically having Brennan and Carrie do the cups of coffee and do all the stuff, the focus groups, etc. I was there at the open house, a lot of good dialogue at that day. On Thursday of this week, we actually are going to talk to the Park and Rec Advisory Commission, specific to Park and Rec issues. Next week is Measure S, specific to workforce, affordable housing. And then we're anticipating CEQA to be the end of this year. And then 2026, once we have a lot more information, we can talk about specifically the funding and the financing. The train metaphor was established to help explain this complicated process. Obviously, it's not as simple as this, but I think what's most important, and I'm going to hand over the clicker to Brendan to go through the rest of the presentation, is, you have green, yellow, and blue, and then you have these red stars. So green is sort of where we've come. And, where the decision points have been with town council. Most recently, we adopted a financial advisor who is guiding us through, kind of this yellow line that takes us to Funding Junction. And Funding Junction is, to me, the sort of critical point where we decide as a community what we're going to build and how we're going to pay for it. I think all of these steps are necessary to get to that point. I think we can talk in concepts and hypotheticals, but the CEQA station, which is really the next decision point, is where the project description, which is the project per CEQA law, is considered by the council. And what's important to understand about CEQA law is these are maximums. So in the last meeting, I said we're preparing the document for 150, they'll say dwelling units. It's not, we like to say homes. But the 125 that you're seeing, which I know Brendan's going to talk a little bit about how form-based can move that needle around, is the number we would propose at this stage, that we're going to build, potentially in phases, And I don't know if you're going to talk about this, Brendan, but I did say the blue line can be a loop, right? Because it's likely not going to be built in one phase. So understand that. I'll turn it over to you. I will share for those that have been here for the week, this is the same presentation that we gave to ZDRB with the exception of 5 slides at the end, which are sort of answering questions that I think have been asked through the week. So apologize for those that have seen this. I'm going to let Brendan sort of drive the train from here. And then I will, once he's done, again, walk around with the mic with John or Aaron or whoever wants to be in that role. So thank you. Thank you. I need a grab one back here.
Thanks, Sam. Good afternoon, Town Council. My name is Brendan Kelly. I'm here with my partner, Carrie Morgan. Very often, because of all the talking I do about this project, and all you know how much I talk about this project, and all of you who went to focus groups, you know how much I talk about it. Sometimes I don't stop long enough. It's obviously not just Carrie, but we have a much larger team of consultants, landscape, engineers, all kinds of other folks, project managers, and I just want to make sure that you know that I am the mouthpiece. But many of the other excellent things that we've talked about this last week are the result of a lot of great of our teammates. So I just want to give and I know that they're all watching online, so I want to make sure I sort of shout them out. This started as kind of an easy way. As we brought consultants on, they wanted to know where the project was. They know that it purchased. It's not an unusual project, but it is sort of specific to Yountville. So we did this enough time that other people wanted to kind of see it because they saw it on boards and sort of other whiteboards, and we finally kind of formalized it. I hope it's helpful. There's a lot of Gantt charts and other kind of fancy things that we sort of produce, but this has helped us make sure that other people know what they're doing and when the next big milestone is for the project, especially if you're designing things. This is where we were a little bit more than 6 months ago.
So today, we're going to consider, discuss, and possibly adopt a resolution that will direct the town manager to proceed with further designs, plans, entitlements, and studies based on a conceptual plan for potential development of the Yountville Commons site. So with that, Brad, I'll turn that over to you.
I think one of the things I am most proud of is we stuck to the timeline. I think rarely do you see in government where you say, you give a timeline, which was about 9 months ago, and we're literally here on March 4th, as we had promised. This is where we need to go into what I have called the planning phase. So when we outlined, sort of these 3 big phases, if you will, of visioning, planning, and then building, we are moving into the next phase. There's going to be a lot of questions over the next year, and I think it's going to be important for the team to drill in. We'll continue to keep people posted, but it won't be 100 cups of coffee or 1 million cups of coffee and dinners and conversations. This will require a lot more technical analysis and work for us to come back to you with a project that is substantially conforming with what you see before you, but also is feasible. I'm going to now turn it over to our lead designer, Brendan, who can walk you through the plan.
We were here many months ago, and it is a joy to be here today to get sort of at this milestone moment to get your feedback on this concept. This is what we said we were going to do when we first met with you. Don't harm things. We are going to concentrate on simple forms. There are no big projects and no specialized buildings for housing or for anything else like that. The form-based architecture comes through on this project. We're seeking to make a place, not a project. When people talk about how's your project going in Yountville, I'm the first one to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. We're just designing a really great place in Yountville, and Yountville doesn't need projects. And it starts, of course, with listening, and this is the result of a lot of different kinds of listening. You are aware, as as elected officials, not everybody who wants to say something or offer an idea wants to do it in public. And we've heard a lot of good ideas and a lot of really important concerns privately that we've been able to answer, some that we've been listed, some we've had to explain that are just part of a housing project. But the listening part has been one of the great joys and honors about how to incorporate all those things into the project.
I really like the overall layout, and I want to just thank Brandon and Carrie for all the work they've done, as well as our town manager and everyone else. So I'm very supportive of it, and I really think it's only been about a year since we bought it, which is, I think, nothing short of remarkable. So thank you.
Engagement of one-on-one and then the dinners and all the workshops really has been, I think, a really extraordinary participation from our community. And that's exactly what everybody wanted in the first place. And I think it was accomplished by staff and consultants and our town residents.
I definitely will support this resolution today because I think it's important for us to move from this concept planning process to a design process.
I do want to underscore that this concept and plan it's interesting, and it's special, and it's retaining the charm and the character that is Yountville, and that is what over and over I know for sure myself has been asked for, and I know when we were back in 2022 that continued to come up as being the biggest concern from locals is getting the school and then keeping the character of the town, and I think we've achieved that.
Gold stars to everybody involved. Really, you aced this one. Home run.
Well, I move adoption of resolution number 254344, directing the town manager to proceed with preparing further designs, plans, entitlements, and studies based on the conceptual site plan for potential development of Yountville Commons, located at 6554 through 6546 Yount Street.
Councilmember Knight?
Yes.
Councilmember Tripp?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeves?
Yes.
Vice Mayor McKee?
Yes.
And Mayor Moeller?
Enthusiastically, yes. So thank you very much. That passes unanimously.
Excellent. So I don't have to repeat anything from 6 months ago. Here we go. So I'm not trying to repeat anything from 6 months ago. Everybody saw that sort of very abbreviated event. Some of the things that have happened from the image on the left is this model right in front of me. It's right here. It had 20 buildings. The current one here, on the image on the right, has 17. It's actually shrunk in size a little bit. Some buildings have merged, which is why buildings have been eliminated, and some have kind of changed locations, and some have just been sort of designed a little more efficiently. And I'm happy to spend time talking about the concept that was approved 6 months ago, but really what's been happening is that there's been a lot of details, both for below ground infrastructure, fire marshals, PG&E, and a lot of other specific things that we're going to go through today. I've spent a lot of time with our focus groups, open house. This is the ZDRB presentation. 6 months ago, we had an intimate village character, a lush creekside landscape, and a walkable, connected community. Somebody came up to me last week and said, it feels like it's a separate village. And I said, great, we've done our job. Everyone in town lives in a neighborhood with very identifiable edges and centers, and that's Yountville is a series of neighborhoods, like a lot of other successful towns, and it's been protected that way, so that neighborhoods don't sort of bleed into others, whether it's car traffic or architectural styles. And this is one of our efforts to do here. So it is one of my ways to describe this is that this is not a housing project next to a park. It's a park, a new amenity at the center of Yountville that has housing in it. This site and I know I don't have to sell elected officials on the wisdom of this project, but you're the ones that bought the site. So now we have a clustered village neighborhood. It's a creek. We still have a creekside garden pathway, and it's a pedestrian-focused experience. We're going to talk a lot about that today. This got me into trouble last week with the town manager because it was too small to read, and it really wasn't understandable. I have an updated slide later today that actually explains what this is. I didn't want to take it out or remove it without sort of an explanation, and I think I'll get better marks from the town manager when he sees that. This is the model from last week. This is an updated model because this is a study model that we're trying to keep showing and improving. That was on a piece of foam core. It added a little bit of height that really wasn't accurate, so we finally have sort of fixed that. And everyone will have a chance to look at this during the study session if everybody kind of wants to come up and look at it. I'm including photos of the model because online sometimes the model doesn't actually get as much star power as it should, which I'm trying to do here with sort of other pictures of the model. You're also seeing architectural concepts that go with some of the models. We actually had to draw these things before we modeled them, and the Commons House, formerly known as the Guest House, is a 30-day or more apartment next to the town hall. Nobody grows up and dreams about living in an apartment house next to town hall. We came up with these terms like guest house. It's now called the Commons House. It's just more housing. It's part of the 125 units, and it has some civic spaces down below. The building in the back is this really a community center building. It has a public rooftop garden. It has a laundromat on the ground floor. It has studios on 2 floors in there. It's served by an elevator. Those are parts of the vision that's part of this new model that has happened in the last 6 months. These are some collateral images by our landscape team. This is a lot of the pieces, very natural and kind of informal garden elements. The runnels that you'll see in the plans, these sort of rivers, these little rivulets of water, are really an abstracted version of an existing agricultural landscape. You see them deployed very successfully on the properties from North Block all the way down to Social. These are successful devices, even though they're very thin, just the idea of running water for fountains. Trellises are everywhere around this parcel. And we'll talk about paving some details too. There are no curbs, for example, in this design. The oval that we can talk about is definitely at the center of the project. It has some stairs, 2 or 3 or 4 stairs, both for sitting and for just sort of informal events at the center of the project. It's surrounded by olives. The meadow is a big recreational device, and it's, of course, connected to the dog park. And we had a whole focus group on dogs. I have not met the person yet who doesn't like dogs in Yountville. There's certainly a lot of conversations about how, where, and what time they operate, and passive versus active. But this is a very enthusiastic dog community. I know that's no surprise to you, and many people have come to find us who don't even have dogs, who have described how much they enjoy the dog park. There is one person at Hopper Creek Condominiums who would like more control over access and noise complaints, and we definitely directed them to the right folks. And thankfully, Sam was at that meeting, and I think we connected him to some people he could communicate with. The plant palette is a native, drought-resistant plant palette, and I'm going to talk about this here in a second. Here are some paving options. We are removing more asphalt and concrete than we are putting back. The school site, a typical 1960s and 70s elementary school in California, not by any motive other than just serving school buses and basketball courts and a lot of kids running around in all kinds of weather. That is not the program, and we have less pervious coverage with 125 units and a lot of the civic amenities than the school has currently. These are some of the civic amenities and how the pedestrian experience moves around some of these buildings. These are not new things. both furniture, materials, tables, even a fire pit potentially. It is an all-electric site. So when you see fire pits, they're probably connected to a propane tank, or maybe in a weather friendly event in the winter, maybe even a wood fire. Who knows? These are the parking groves. We got the chance to talk about parking this last few days since the ZDRB, and I will report on some of the parking strategies. The more example of runnels and especially welcoming devices for kids of all ages. This is what we showed almost a year ago for a lot of the adjacent architecture for Yountville. I'm going to point out this one right here, Plaster. We were caught by ZDRB not showing some shutters. I think it was just it was a miss on our part, but this is the metal roof, and there's a lot of, and when we talk about the sketches, the missing middle, these 7 and 8 unit buildings that make up the heart of the housing element, that's really what we're talking about, these missing middle buildings. That's a ground floor studio layout. That is some of the elevations that sort of turned into these 3D prints that are now on the model. This is a double scale piece that we sort of use for demonstration. There are 7 units and a single stair. In the state of California, under the 2025 building code, you can have 1 stair serving 8 units. That's 7 units. It's 4 studios on the ground floor and 3 one-bedrooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. And along with the concept, we're keeping them at 2 and 3 stories. In a jostled version, both in plan and arrangement, so that they don't look like a row of roofs or anything sort of, and mostly it's scalable. You can build 1, or you can build 5, or you can build all 12. More of my amazing sketches and Carrie's renderings. Here are some shots looking from Hopper Creek's trail back in through this neighborhood. That's from the very corner of the property looking back. We actually had the chance to meet a resident of Hopper Creek, I think last Saturday, and she allowed us to go to their back deck and their breakfast room, and we've taken a picture, and next week we're going to send them a picture of what it looks like from their kitchen window and from their back deck. Mostly because we can, and it's a very easy thing, and that's really what you hired us to do, is to sort of explain this project, even if it's down to the person living next door.
Is this from where the dog park is now?
Yes. That's the shot of the greenhouse. The proposed greenhouse is all the way at the end. This is really through these windows, looking north all the way past the Yountville Fit here on the right, and Schmidt Hall, and the new buildings here, these 2-story buildings and 1 little 3-story building on the left that would be in the current administration building that would be coming down, and in the parking lot along Yount Street.
Can you use your microphone?
I just want to reiterate what you just said, because I think it's just an amazing thought that your picked this view before. This is really from the council chambers looking north and talking about the openness once this building is removed, that we're talking about an open space and gathering place. That I just want to be sure people realize that, because it's really an amazing just view in this one photo here. So thank you.
Thank you. What we call the chambers to garden sort of axis, this whole area, we haven't come up with a good name. The chambers to garden axis, or the chambers to greenhouse axis, will be a very busy place. It has housing. It has a health club. It has a very busy place like Schmidt Hall, busy with camps and other things. And of course, the Commons House, a residential project, is there on the left. And the bell tower doesn't have bells. It has air conditioning equipment. That's what you can do with towers today in California. And it doesn't really have a backyard for mechanical equipment, which is why we actually sort of like built a tower for it. And this is the shot of Yount Street. It was going to be a 4-story 7-Eleven until some neighbors came along. We moved it back. I'm half joking. They were very instrumental a few months ago, and it's now 2 stories with kind of a civic arcade along Yount Street, and mostly trying to make it feel like the rest of Yount Street. And thank you, Kay and Cindy, for being here. I have. This is the site plan. We have already changed the term here, guest house, to commons house. And if it's okay, I'm going to speed through this kind of added piece here from the last week that we've been in the middle of ZDRB and the open house and the focus groups and the one-on-ones. So, what are the themes from the focus groups and the office hours? Parking strategies and mobility pieces. I love the project, but let's talk about parking. The sustainability piece was great that we talked about them essentially being effectively a net zero project, but a lot of questions about waste, composting, things that we didn't really have a lot of good answers for at this stage of the project. The community amenities and wellness, there was a wellness focus group. The pool, of course, came up. The food hubs, the gathering spaces, and a lot of questions around cost, operations, and viability. The dog focus group, I think I talked about, a lot of good conversations around dogs, how the specific design of this dog park, which was very different from the conceptual phase. Our landscape team was very excited to dig into the landscape part of this this dog park, which I'm very happy to spend some time in detailing if you don't know it already. And of course, the housing design and market fit. There were a lot of questions. Somebody came and said, "Hey, this should all be family housing," or other questions. And this is part of the conversations that we had. This now actually has some of the numbers that people were looking for in that prior slide. We have about 53,000 square feet of footprint on the building. When you look at this model between the white and the gray on the school site, it actually only covers about 16% of the site. And of that 16% coverage of the site, 33% of it is already here. Not just in this building, but in Yountville Fit and Schmidt Hall. So there's another 35,000 square feet on 7.5 acres of new buildings in terms of a footprint. With those 17 buildings include about 60,000, I say 59,000 here, 60,000 square feet of conditioned space on ground floor, second floor, and a handful of third floor pieces. The one exception is the rooftop garden on top of 3 stories in that center. In this center community building right here. And we put some foliage to represent the roof garden up there. That's not it looks like a mistake sometimes that there's trees on the roof, but that's why they're there. There's 17 new buildings, 125 units. Somebody came up to us on ZDRB and said, "I thought you said 70. I thought you said 75. How come it got all to 125? The town wants to make sure that we can describe a completed project to everybody. And when you take 75 or 80 one-bedrooms and split them in half, you get 125 or 150 studios, which is why it's getting entitled for 150 homes. We have 90 studios and 35 one-bedrooms right now in front of you, with about another 10,000 square feet distributed of potentially civic spaces, which could also, of course, be homes. But that's why 75 or 80 turned into 125, because we are showing as small and as independent units as possible. And I'm sorry for any confusion, but I hope that clears it up. The density that we're talking about is about 16 homes per acre. It will be the most dense place, even with all the existing buildings on site, than any other place in Yountville. It looks like a park, which is good. We did a good job. I'll pat myself on the back. But Yountville's range goes from about 8.6 homes per acre down at Rancho to the most sort of luxurious in Old Town, which ranges from the 4.4 homes per acre. So even as we have a lot of parks and amenities, it's actually at the highest density for residents. You know, when you get into hotels, you can sort of like get into other densities. But in terms of a residential density, it's definitely the highest in town. And of course, the parking. There are 169 parking spots. There are 91 current parking spots, both on-site and around on the curbs on, Yount Street and Fennell, which people use to access this site. This is the parking data and how to explain the 159 parking spots and versus the 92. I think it's actually the Yount Street parking lot only has 32, not 33, but it's a nit. So that shows the expansiveness, and also when we phase things about building new parking lots and leaving things like Yount Street for maybe later phases, it will probably have larger parking capacity before it has sort of changed parking capacity, if that makes sense. We're going to cover this on Thursday with PRAC, but now we're talking about this is not only a place for housing. There are many civic amenities. There are already many civic amenities that are already here. Of course, Yountville Fit, the farm stand, the beautiful garden, the dog park, and I've listed them here in this right-hand column. And if you want a lot more details, I'm happy to go through it. But this is a complement to the other existing amenities in Yountville for its current residents. And this is the last part of this sort of sketch. Somebody said, well, if you're going to need 2 bedrooms, you're going to have to expand it and change the design, and where will we be then? This is a junior 2-bedroom unit taking the same amount of space as what I would call a generous 1-bedroom unit. So the unit mix is definitely designed to fit both vertically and horizontally within these current designs, from studios, small 300 square foot units, to 1-bedrooms, and even a handful of potential 2-bedrooms. There's a lot of elbow room within the current footprints that we've sort of covered. And with that, I am done.
Thank you, Brendan. That was, let's see, it's 1:40, so I know I finished 1:15, so 25 minutes. Great job. Lots of information, of course. I do think before I ask clarifying questions to council and we go into a community dialogue, I have a couple clarifying questions. Because on the parking slide, you showed 169 and 91, and then right behind it, you showed 159 and 92. So at least on this by the numbers slide, it's the slide I gave you a hard time for. Now I'm giving you another hard time in public.
That's okay.
So one of those is right.
I was moving very quickly this morning. I think it's this. I think it's the second slide. I think it's 159, and my poor eyesight.
Okay. So 159 and 92. The grid is
yes,
right.
The grid is right.
The summary is off.
The grid is right. Thank you.
The other important thing before we start the dialogue is, we're not expecting decisions today. This isn't intended to be any decision. I do think we all hear direction. I mean, I think through all of the process we've explained, we're all listening, on the staff side, and the opportunity to get direction from the council is unique because ultimately you're the decision makers. So I do think, as you talk, and I think, whether it's me asking, hey, is this a consensus issue, or, versus taking a bunch of individual stuff that may not be, the consensus of the community, which ultimately the elected officials represent, because that'll be when we get into CEQA decisions and funding decisions, it will be you. No offense to the community, but obviously this is the point in time where the council has to make hard decisions down the road. So I may just, as I facilitate, say, hey, is this a consensus thing? And if it's a nod, we move forward. If it needs to be a discussion, then that's a good time for you all to, deliberate. So I will say some people are more comfortable with the mic, the podium. John, you said you'd be Phil. That's great. Thank you. I saw that we turned the mic sideways. I think this is like an Alan Tencher homage here, so that we can look at the crowd. Now we're spinning it. You can you can turn it any way you like, or you can take the mic from John. But I think starting with the council, based on 25 minutes of Brendan Kelly and myself, do you have any questions you'd like to ask us before the community starts? Yes?
Are there any regulatory?
No, your microphone.
Any regulatory requirements for parking? Like if you're going to have 125 units, are there any requirements that under, I don't know, under the building code or count?
There used to be.
Yep.
Very strict state regulations. Before COVID, Yountville and many other jurisdictions unbundled at the state's permission parking requirements for multifamily. There, we talked about in the mobility, just as a demonstration, 400 unit project in Redwood City, 6 parking spots. So there are many, many jurisdictions around California that are being allowed, especially for workforce housing, with little to no parking. That is now allowed.
Okay, that was my question. And then my other question is, are you anticipating in your designs any out, I don't know, deck might be the wrong word, but windows that open with a small space or anything like that for these units?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yes. Can I show you those?
I want the community to have a time
Yeah.
to talk, but I just wondered, just really briefly, yeah.
This is a, Kara, can you hold on to that? I'm going to show it on here so everybody online can understand it. Yes, the answer is yes. And it's not a lot, but we have these rooms that are not part of the building that hold batteries and heat pumps, things that shouldn't really be in a person's unit, and the fire department doesn't want them there anyway. So these little rooms that have to be accounted for end up having a roof. And what we did is there are little pop-outs like that we drew. And this, right, I'll get there.
You just went by it.
Yeah. Thank you, sorry. People know. Yeah, there we go. Thank you.
There it is.
So, yeah, actually, right there is one of these little rooms. And that's a deck for that unit.
For that unit.
For that unit. Okay. So the ground floor has a lot of maybe 6-7 foot adjacent outdoor spaces. Those are all the studios. The upstairs units have much smaller private outdoor spaces as part of the stairway, but every 1 or 2 in these for a building of 7 would have one of these outdoor spaces.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just add, I think something that's other critical to outdoor space is that everyone has a front door that opens to nature. And I think this is where you avoid the double-loaded corridor, the infamous double-loaded corridor, which I think is really, in my experience, kind of a curse to affordable housing. So I think the thoughtful design of outdoor spaces, front doors, we could go on and on about different little details. But I do think, that is, in nature, we say trees first is another kind of key principle in terms of like, because Brennan's done hotels, and in my former life I did hotels before I did housing, the trees come first, not as an afterthought. And I think that's what you'll see when you look at the site plan that is really critical, I think, to the sense of place. So outdoor is, obviously just a lot of things. And I do feel like if these spaces all work as we conceive them, people will live, in the commons, both the community and the residents. And I think there will be a lot of interesting places. But I think having a private balcony is also an important thing for a lot of people. So I appreciate the question.
This came up in our meetings. Wow, that looks like a lot of trees. This project, the school site right now, aside from the massive tax subsidies that support a public school, for, 100 years, this site with lawn and irrigation is a massively intensive maintenance project for the school. And the town bought it, but the idea is that we're shrinking the lawn by an extraordinary amount, even though while we're keeping recreational things. The trees have been here for thousands of years and are actually now coming back onto the site. Oaks, sycamores, other natives. And mostly for water retention and other things. So the site right now is, as much as people love the lawns and the play fields, it's a very unusual thing on the floor of Napa Valley. It takes a lot of water and a lot of maintenance. And our goal is to actually have this whole sort of site be easier to maintain in terms of a recreational thing. And we are definitely preparing for that explanation with PRAC on Thursday.
Okay, any other clarifying questions? Okay. All right. Again, whatever you're most comfortable. John has the mic back there. Who wants to go first? All right, Myrna.
Hello, everyone. You've done an incredible job. I'm wowed by all of this. I haven't been keeping up on a really continuous basis, so I have a couple of questions, and maybe you're going to address this at the PRAC meeting. There were two sort of minor elements that I'd like you to mention what the status of it is. One is the ball field, and the other, there was some consideration for a lap pool. Can you talk about those elements?
Why don't I talk about both of those? The ball field, in terms of I'll just use the term that's in the resolution, the conceptual drawings is not in there. So this was a decision that was part of the deliberations that led to that, including with PRAC. So you can go back and kind of listen to that. But that was, something we discussed in quite great depth. The pool, or the lap pool, is a really, I think, an important conversation to have, because I think there's a lot of sort of facets to that. I know you called it a prism yesterday, so meaning there's a lot of sort of angles to the idea of the pool. It starts with, do we want it? But when we get into the question of do we want it, I think you have to break it into the one-time cost, which would be to build it, and then the ongoing cost, which would be to operate it. And I do think there are three sort of operating models, if you will. There's the municipal pool, which is what was at the Vets Home, which is run by the town, and Sam was here and can talk great length about a municipal pool. There's the private pool, which is in essence just for the residents of the housing. So, and this is typical in an apartment complex. Right next door, Hopper Creek Condos has a pool, right? You can only go there if you live there. And then the middle ground is the idea of the fit pool as we're presenting it, but it's the idea that Yountville Fit would run it. And I think that they're a health club. Obviously, you see lots of health clubs that run pools. I think the question beyond that in the middle, which would be, where we would guide you if you want to go there, is really the question of subsidy, the ongoing subsidy, because pools do not pay for themselves. And I think you have to sort of deliberate that, at funding junction. But I think you have to discuss it at this level, because I think I heard a lot of people really make, I think, good points about the pool at the open house. I was listening. I won't name names, but there was people that were saying, I want the pool, I don't want the pool, for good reason. So this is, again, a good issue, and I think PRAC is a good venue to probably get more specific on that issue. But anyway, that's my answer, Myrna. The pool is kind of complicated.
In terms of the project description, the baseball field is not in the project description. The pool is in the project description in terms of the impacts and how to sort of study it.
Correct. Anyone else? Cindy.
Yeah. Could you point out where the rooftop garden is, and is it a shared space or?
It is intended to be shared in the sense the public can use it.
Come on up here, Cindy. I'll show it to you right now.
Yeah,
it's a study session. We can do this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right in the middle. I think we call it the village center on the site plan.
This is the community building right here. Eric, I hate to have my back to you.
Sorry,
my back to Gary is okay, I think.
Not that mobile.
Cindy, I know you're.
It's also for people at home, so it's kind of.
It's right here. It's very purposefully off of the oval. It's connected with a lot of walkways. It kind of sits there both on the side of the residential neighborhood and also at the edge of what I would call kind of the town amenity, because that rooftop garden is definitely meant to be a public rooftop garden for private parties or New Year's events and things like that, and it's not meant to be open 24/7 so that everybody at Hopper Creek starts calling me tomorrow and says oh my gosh, what the heck are you doing? So it is a controlled amenity. Maybe it'll be talked about as much as the pool someday. I don't know. It has an elevator to it. It has 2 exits. It will have a capacity of maybe 60 or 70 people. So it's not like, it's not like an open bar. It's really just a rooftop garden with a small bathroom and a small kitchen just to make rooftop views don't exist in Yountville. especially public views. And when you get up, only three stories, the views to the west, to the north, especially to Stag's Leap and parts south, are remarkable. They're incredible, and there's no reason that just because everyone has kind of a close-in view doesn't mean that on the afternoon or in the morning you can't just sort of get up and sort of catch your breath. We started with a whole bunch of rooftop gardens, maybe half a dozen, because that's what came through the cups of coffee. But we realized that was going to be the first thing to go in value engineering time. So we put it in one place with an elevator, publicly accessible, privately controlled, and right next. It's not on Yount Street. It's right next door to your car, though. No, I'm not going to do any stand-up comments tonight. It is
Brendan. It's on the screen, so you can reference it there for the people at home.
Thank you.
And what else will be in that building? The
Microphone.
There's 12 studio apartments in that building.
Okay.
And the ground floor is shared space, like a community room and the laundromat.
And the laundry, but no, you're not anticipating commercial space.
No. The only commercial, there's no commercial thing about it. It's just publicly accessible on the top. And we made it with an elevator so the public doesn't have to walk by everybody's front door. The stairways are really for the residents, and the access for the public is through the elevator, obviously for the residents as well. But the idea is that people coming and going at 9 o'clock at night don't have to walk by people's apartments. Did you get your question answered, Kay?
Cindy.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Could you? I still don't quite get where it is on the big map. If you zoomed out.
Yeah, it's right next to the oval.
It's on the north side of the oval.
It's on the other side of the oval.
The other.
It would take you about 5 minutes to walk.
Can you see it here, Cindy?
from your house.
Okay.
Can you see it? I can't point to it, but you can see.
Okay, I see the pool.
Yeah, so to the left of the oval is the building that we're discussing.
Got it. Thank you.
And your building is like your house is like up in the right-hand corner.
Okay, hey, John.
Are we good?
Now I know where you live.
He's up in the front.
It'll be very popular when it's a concert.
Don't make a speech.
So I'm asking this question just because it's about the oval. When you were speaking about it earlier, you were talking about steps around it, and it popped into my head, is there access that doesn't require any steps to the oval?
Yes. There is a grade change, as those of you know the site, and I think Brendan has been working with landscape architects to really minimize the grade change. Sure. But there's also ramps that get you through there, so you don't have to use the steps.
That's a perfect answer.
Thank you. I'm sure Brendan could spend another 10 minutes showing you the ramps and how they're beautifully decorated. And but I do think because it's such a short grade change, and also I think, I know it started with 4 feet, and I think you've taken it to 2 feet. It really gives us the opportunity to create kind of this beautiful little oval that's shaped by steps, really more as a seat than it is an access point. But you always have to have ADA access throughout the site. All right. Keep it going. Okay.
I attended a number of the study sessions.
What about mentioning your name? We got a lot of public. I know I have a lot of public. I didn't start that earlier, so I'm not really picking on you. But if you could just give us your name.
Monica McCrary. I live on Weber Street near the project.
We don't need an address. Just your name.
Well, I'll be affected by parking. That's why I mentioned it.
Justified. That's okay.
When I attended a number of the sessions, anytime a concern was raised, Brendan almost always had multiple solutions to those concerns. However, whenever we asked him more details about it, it was always apparent that it's going to have to be addressed in the operating agreement when you hire the operator. So I'm wondering if you have started creating a list of the things you want in the operator agreement so we know what issues you will be addressing that we've raised.
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, is the short answer. We're working on, how we want to discuss the operator agreement with the council and the community. But parking is paramount, and I do think we use the word, or at least I use the word strategies. I mean, I do think it's always, a challenging conversation. But clearly it's on the list, and it's, to me, very high on the list.
I guess I'm more wondering, is the public going to be able to see what's going to be in the operator agreement and and make sure things we're concerned about are in there?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I mean, we will have probably 2 council decisions as it relates to the operator.
Okay.
The one thing I'm going to add, because I went to a lot of parking meetings with Monica, the car for the council, what helped us, the cars are already in town. The 125 units are not bringing new cars because this is for workforce housing. The intent is for it to replace the cars because they won't be allowed to actually have a car in lieu of having this workforce housing. So it's actually getting, hopefully, rid of houses. Now, there are 125 parking spaces because there's a lot of other amenities, the park, the dog park, the fitness club, all these other things that we're talking about. The site needs parking, and it needs more parking than it has right now. But the second strategy is that there's already, the cars that we're talking about are already here. They're not new and coming. Now, there's a lot of things and they were very robust conversations. This is a very highly skilled attorney. I don't know if she's still working, but you'd probably want her to work for you because she never let us sort of like get past into the fuzzy stuff, and which is why I think the questions about operators are gonna keep coming up.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And why I use the term strategy is we're really going to have to talk about it because it tends to trickle, off street, on street, which is always this balancing act. You make a good point. A lot of employees, as you know, park on street in the community, which, I don't think we can really solve that. This is why I struggle with the word solution. But I think strategies are paramount, and I feel like there's a lot of things. I wouldn't go as far as to say, this is where the Berkeley guy gets to scold the Stanford guy. I wouldn't go as far as to say, like, you can't have a car, because I think that becomes a flashpoint of California, and, like, how can you live without a car? This becomes this religious sort of thing. But meanwhile, the other balancing act I know we already discussed, and you pointed out the Redwood City project, which I think was like 260 units, whatever the one is. I mean, the state has sort of taken over control. So this is one of the key reasons we need to maintain control of the project so that we can come up with a parking strategy that's reasonable. Otherwise, 0 units, 0 parking spaces, and however many units, which would be a real challenge to manage from the town's perspective, because really all we have the ability to do is manage the on-street parking. Now with this, we have on-street, off-street, and those strategies can be complementary. So I think we'll get there. It's just, the operator is kind of this question that we need to start to discuss as a community.
Another quick question.
Yeah.
Why the short-term rental?
Yeah, I think I'll answer that because I think it got misconstrued in terms of short-term, what that definition is. I think my goal has been, and I said this in ZDRB, I at least said this to a lot of people individually, obviously the whole council, is to maintain as much flexibility and funding options as we get into the real decision through CEQA and through funding. Short-term to me is seasonal. And I think seasonal becomes this question of our workforce and, our hospitality by nature is seasonal, because you have the high season, low season, which we all know living here. But then you get into, different sort of questions of demand, which is, okay, where is the demand? Like who actually will live here? Based on rents, most importantly, everyone starts with how much is it going to cost. But then you get into these sort of unique things within a hospitality community of seasonal housing, which I would call it that instead of short-term housing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
As some of the people in the room who've worked in hospitality are aware, myself having worked for Fairmont and Marriott, there's task force housing, and when you're in management in some of the bigger operators, you sign your life away and say, yes, I will travel. And so if a general manager steps down or a front desk manager or somebody in a management position steps down, it's not unusual that a task manager will come in and help train staff and kind of bridge the gap until somebody can be hired, and then they train that manager. So it's very common that somebody would come in for 3 to 6 months in a temporary position, and then they move to their next destination.
So will these rentals be limited only to workforce housing?
This will be a CEQA question. You know, I think we have to define the project, and I think workforce, if you want to draw that line between 30 days and over, like that's where you go from a hotel to a housing unit, and that will be before the council to, you know, decide. I think I've said out loud, which I think is what I've heard, but it's always, you know, tricky to say what they say, as I always say, because, you know, we have meetings where a lot of things are discussed. But generally speaking, the primary initiative here is to build workforce housing for the town of Yountville. You know, so I think that's like, and if we can have a line out the door for 125 units based on that, like, I don't know why we would serve anything else, but I also feel like the council has the ability to chime in on that subject once we define the project description.
It could be that renting it out like an Airbnb brings more revenue in. So, I mean, that's why I'm asking the questions, is have the possibility to become Airbnb.
Sure. And I think, again, I don't want to speak for the council, but I do want to speak for what I've heard and what we've discussed in goal setting and other forums, in that the primary objective is to serve the workforce of Yountville. And I think making sure that pencils or pays for itself, obviously, is a really key question that we haven't gotten to yet. So this is why options are open. But I'm confident. You know, this is where I feel like sometimes I'm overconfident, but I am confident that based on the path we're on, we will have a feasible project before the council. And that will have at least, you know, if you look at the train metaphor, 3 or 4 more sort of points in time where the community gets together and makes these decisions.
Can I just make I want to try to maybe rip the Band-Aid off the pool so I'd like to hear some more pool discussion. But one thing I would like to maybe suggest that the staff could work with our Yountville Fit operator, Donovan. If the pool is going to be part of Yountville Fit, probably in the next few months, I would like for him to somehow come up with enough financial information to let us know whether the extra cost on Yountville Fit members would pay for that pool, and over how much time that would happen. So I think I like the model now where you can kind of get, you know, a basic plan for Yountville Fit, or the plan where all the classes are there. And so what I'm saying is this would be a separate add-on to the membership. So if somebody wants a basic membership, they don't have to subsidize the pool as a member. So that's kind of my thought there. But so I really want to know if that's even an option. Does he think that that's doable to pay for that pool? Because that might take that one possibility off, and then we can. I also think that with the number of residents here, there's really not that many, and I see a lot of these pools. We did a big pool survey a long time ago in town, and there was a hell of a lot of swimming pools all over the place, and not a lot of them are still really used that much. So I kind of even wonder if it would, to serve the residents alone, whether there would really be much use for that either. But I'd like to hear everyone else's thoughts on at some time we're going to have to not just if there is a pool, we're going to have a discussion. So if you have any thoughts, I'd like to hear them.
I'm very much in favor of a pool, probably because I don't have one. And this summer I was driving up to St. Helena to swim. And, we do have a small number of residents, but we're building in a lot of community facilities. I mean, we're building in a potential area to listen to concerts. We do have a good one up there. We're building in a roof garden. Taking out the vets, we have like 2,500 people who actually live in town. So we're building in an archive, potentially building all sorts of community spaces for residents, and we don't even have that many residents. And I think one time we looked at how many parks we have per person already in Yountville, and it's quite high, and they're beautiful parks. I have the luxury of a 5-year-old, so I visit a lot of them. They're used by our community, the wider community. So anyway, a pool is something I think people in Yountville would really use. And as I recall, when we did the rec survey, although Samantha, you'll have to remind me, a number of people were still interested in a pool, a dog park and a pool. But so that's just my 2 cents. And as far as paying for it, we're looking at a $50 to $75 million project, and we have yet to talk about any of the costs of building this or operating it. No pro formas, nothing like that. So I agree with Margie, but I think that's the thin end of the wedge, what the dues would be for the pool. The thicker end of the wedge is, one, do we want to pay for all these things? And two, because I'm all in on workforce housing, but the community parts. And two, can we and do we want to? Those are the questions. So I'm with Margie, but I think the pool dues would be kind of the thin edge of the wedge in terms of how we finance a pool in a bond issue or a borrowing that could be, $75 million. So.
Yeah, and Alan, if you can, in beginning your comments, maybe address what the Park and Rec Master Plan said, if you remember. If not, Sam can chime in. But go ahead and make your comment. I don't know what it said specific to that subject.
Sam, you want to go ahead and chime in on the pool?
Yes. So in the data, in the actual plan, it was marked as something to consider for the future, and so that specifically had a kind of an unallocated time frame, an impact, because obviously when the plan was adopted, we didn't have the school property. And so it was listed on there, access to a swimming pool and or water play area as an other, as far as parks and facilities goals for the future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to revisit this operator idea, because after spending a fair bit of time last week, it became patently clear that that is the key from top to bottom on this project. It's key financially, whether you're charged 6 or 7% or 17%. In my walk today, I walked through a 17% situation, which doesn't manage its parking. And I walked through a 7% situation, which doesn't manage its landscaping. So we have been spoiled as a town by the quality of our parks and rec and the quality of our public works. And so as we think about this new public space, I really want us to not lose focus on how central this operator is. And so I really encourage the process of the elaboration and selection of this person, this entity, to have it be very public, because parking is something the town doesn't want to grapple with on a town-wide basis because of the devil we've made a deal with in terms of workforce housing, employee housing mixed with residential. Let's get this right. Employee parking in residential areas. Thank you. So you see, we really have to focus on this operator because every time we would ask a question last week of Brendan, it would be, well, we'll get the answer on whether it should be single-family homes or units, or whether it should be studios when we get the operator on board. They're the ones that are going to do the survey. And I'm surprised the town wouldn't do the survey ahead of time. But anyway, just
on that point, Alan, we did do a survey last year through the chamber to kind of try to get a sense of where all the employees are living. So we have some data. We can commission any survey, but I do think it does come down to this question of operations. And so I just feel like to have a survey that's meaningful, to have data that's meaningful, we do need to cross that bridge. And we're working in that direction. That's why you see CEQA station and operator onboarding really at that next junction. So we'll continue to do that. It will be a public process, ultimately. And I think that will enlighten us on a lot of questions. I didn't watch you do the rope-a-dope. I saw you over there, just working all the questions. And I think it's always hard. I will tell you, I'm in that place all the time. People want answers to questions that I don't feel that I can give responsible answers to. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to give you responsible answers so that we don't sort of overpromise or underdeliver, all those sorts of concerns. So that's where it comes from. And I think that the train metaphor has helped me say, okay, look at sequestration and operator onboarding. We're going to have that conversation before we get to Fundy Junction. We have to.
Yeah, and my whole point is how central that choice is going to be to how well this project works and how happy each of us as residents are with the outcome.
Yes.
So thank you.
Agreed. Did we want to talk about the pool anymore? I felt like we did a pool pause and we jumped away from that. So anyone on the pool? John, okay, we got hands on the pool. First? Yeah, okay.
Hello, Megan Mason. I feel like I'm not totally clued in on the pool because I know they did a survey and I still don't know what those numbers. I'd be curious what the numbers of people who really wanted a pool. But I would agree with the mayor that there are so many pools in this town within housing communities, residential, that I really have struggled with the need for a pool. And if it is a pool that is for just Yountville Fit, then how is that serving the greater community of people who might want to use it but don't want to join Yountville Fit? And then the cost of maintaining a pool is, if you have a pool, it's a lot. And to keep it looking good and it's in a visible place, it's like the maintenance of the whole property. I'm just concerned that is it a useful and necessary piece of the puzzle? So.
My pool suggestion is that if there's going to be a swimming pool, it should be for the residents, and it should be apart from the fitness center, and it should be for them, just like for other developments we have. It's for the residents.
Okay, so I think I've heard some confusion. So, and thank you for that, Sharon, because that's what I was referring to, the residents that will be living on this property, not a municipal pool for all residents.
But I think that's what I heard Sharon just say, a municipal pool. General public.
Okay.
Yeah, general
okay.
public.
All right,
so.
good, thanks.
Yeah, I personally think that when the survey was conducted, this is just kind of my own opinion, is that people were thinking more of an Olympic-sized pool. They were thinking of a social pool. They were thinking of a pool where anybody from the community could enjoy it. So that said, I do think that the various amenities that are going to be on this in Yountville Commons, including the Coop by Hoops and the dog park, are all going to be used incrementally by all the people that are living in this in Yountville Commons. So I think the pool will, and they don't, that right now, well, it's an open question as to whether this pool would just be for those residents of Yountville Commons. I would not personally endorse that, because I do think that there is an interest community-wide in the pool. But then there's the other issue of a lap pool, which is maybe more manageable and it's smaller, that is technically usually an exercise pool. It's not a social pool. So I just raise these issues. I don't have an answer, but I think there are a lot of angles that we need to look at, both from the standpoint of overall usage, what the community really wants, and whether there's a demand for something more along the lines of an exercise pool, a lap pool, versus a social pool.
And we've had, I would like to suggest maybe when, I don't, if it's going to come up at a ZDRB, that ZDRB, you probably already have your agenda set, but Samantha has a lot of information from years of a couple attempts of us and the expense of running the pool at the Veterans Home. Yeah. Just, how much that cost us a lot of money. Yeah. And there's a lot of issues with lifeguards and all that and regulation. So just maybe Samantha, I think, can perhaps put some information there.
Just to correct, you meant PRAC.
PRAC,
said
yes, I
CDRB,
did. Thank
yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation on Thursday, and I think we can
Okay.
be more prepared on Thursday than we are right now, because the three models I outlined do all have different operating
Right,
budgets associated with
right.
them.
And as much as Sam can, bring all of our historical financials together, I think it helps maybe narrow our focus a little bit.
Does anyone else want to express their opinion on the pool right now before we open up to a broader discussion? Everyone's good? Okay. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, of course.
We need a mic there.
I'm allowed to make a general comment, right?
Yes, just come to the microphone. Just give us your name. Yes.
I'm allowed to make a general comment?
As it relates to the comments, absolutely.
Okay. Sergio Barajas. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and community members. My name is Sergio Barajas, and I represent the hardworking men and women of Carpenters Local 751 here in Napa County. I'm here to speak today about the critical importance of having strong labor standards on the development projects like the one before you today. Labor standards are foundational protections that ensure our workers are treated fairly with dignity and respect. These standards guarantee fair wages, health benefits, apprenticeship opportunities, and local hiring practices. More than just legal requirements, these protections are what stand between the community's prosperity and exploitation. They're the difference between building a strong, vibrant economy that benefits everyone and then allowing developers to cut corners at the expense of our neighbors, our workers, and the integrity of our neighborhood. When we allow irresponsible developers to bypass these labor standards, we see negative consequences unfold in real time. Out-of-town contractors often flood into our city, bringing in workers who are not only from outside the area, but are also paid wages far below a livable standard. These workers often do not have health insurance, retirement benefits, or even have opportunities for skill development and advancement. Worse, they have no investment into Yountville. They won't be shopping in our local stores. They won't be sending their kids to our schools. They won't be contributing to our local economy in meaningful ways. Local workers who benefit from these jobs are systematically shut out. However, when we prioritize strong labor standards like prevailing wages, skilled and trained workforce requirements, local hiring goals, and health coverage for all, we are not only building housing or commercial space, we are building careers, investing in futures of our community, and creating pathways for neighbors to enter and thrive into middle class. Labor standards are more than just a line item in a contract. They are a long-term investment into the economic health of our city. They provide framework that ensures those in Yountville are not only treated fairly, but also have the opportunity to grow professionally and contribute to the local economy. That's why we strongly urge the City Council to ensure that all development projects in Yountville include strong labor standards like implementing pre-qual language that essentially levels up the playing field. This is not just about quality of a building, it's about the quality of life and the people who build it, and for the residents who will live in it and work here for years to come. At the end of the day, the true value of any project starts with the people who construct it. Our community deserves nothing less than high-quality, well-built projects, product of hard work, fair pay, and commitment to the future of Yountville. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. John, you can grab the mic back. Is there anyone else that wants to offer any comments?
Just one, Kimberly Cook, just one quick clarification. At the ZDRB meeting, it was said that there were 120 parking spaces, and now it's bumped up to 159 or 169. And that sounds like because you are counting street parking now, is that correct?
I think that's correct.
We added a whole bunch in the last week. No, I'm just kidding. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Parking. Let's talk about parking. And it's a fair question.
Yeah, talk about parking.
Yep.
All night long.
I want to get to the right tab. I'm sorry about the misread as I was hurrying up to try to get this thing underway today. I want this tab right here. Okay. So right now at the north, at the Yount parking lot, you have 33, 32, doesn't matter. On Yount Street, the on-street parking, there's 21 on-street parking spots. A lot of the restrictions on Yount Street and even Fennell are coming from curb cuts. And we're actually reducing the curb cuts from 6 to 4. And because of the curb cuts, the way that they're laid out, it's a very inefficient way to make efficient parking, especially the lengths of them that are all kind of like Ford F-250. You can actually put a lot more parking spots on the street. So the on-street parking goes from 21 to 32. Obviously, we are not trying to lengthen the property lines. So that comes from fewer curb cuts and a more efficient layout on the on-street parking. So of that 127 here on site, which is usually the way that I kind of talk about the parking. And because of the project impact and getting to CEQA, you actually do get to count and have to count the on-street parking for both what you have and what you're taking away, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the difference between the on-site, which is the 127, and the on-street, which totals to 159. Sorry about that, Brad. The other part here is the 28 other on-site. The project description requires us to be able to show where the Uber has to park and where the Amazon delivery truck has to park and where the food trucks have to park around the oval and where these emergency services get to park. And all of a sudden it's a public event, and where all those people are going to sort of park around the oval, mostly because it was designed for a lot of let's just say high event extra parking on site. So that's also part of this number. So we tried to show for the project description as many cars as you can get on site. And that's why when I say 120, it's really, the references are really only on site because I'm constantly working on the parking lot configurations.
One more question. Now you brought up more questions.
That's okay.
So looking at this map,
Yes.
if somebody came into the parking behind Town Hall, that goes all the way across, past the oval, past the parking, and out on Yount Street. Is that correct? A car can go all the way through there?
I would say a fire truck can do that.
Okay.
We're trying
Not
to.
cars.
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
that's not going to be open every day.
That looks scary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, technically you can, but the fire marshal needs to be able to go sort of straight through the site. So does security, so does ambulances, things like that. But for regular car travel, no.
That will be blocked off
Right.
in some way. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Tripp?
Yeah, I am kind of concerned about the parking. I do understand the European village concept and reducing cars, which I think is a great idea. But even if everybody who worked here moved into Creekside Village and lived in a one-bedroom, it's likely they may have a partner, a spouse, a roommate, and they're going to have a car. So having lived, like a lot of us, in some pretty crowded neighborhoods like in Rockridge and Oakland and Berkeley, where street parking and residential is really a problem, and then you get into permits, and then we're going to have to hire somebody to administer that. So I do think the parking is really important, and I have two aspects about that. One, I just wanted to ask, because I walk around Yountville a lot, and Yount Street is one of the few streets I see that there is all the parking spaces tend to be filled. And so my question is really very simple. Could you move some of the units? Does the guest house need to be there? Could you, one, I ask that from a feasibility in terms of the number of units. Do you need X amount of units to make this work? And then secondly, if you do, could you move some of those units into little taller buildings in Creekside Village or somewhere else? Because it does seem pretty prudent to have a parking area in front of Yountville fit along Yountville, along Yount Street. And then my other concern is, and there may be no ways about this, but having gone through 2 back surgeries and whatnot, and now I'm on the other side, it's going to be a tough lift for people that carry groceries all the way from the parking area to their unit, even relatively Obviously, we're not designing this for senior living, but even non-seniors sometimes have orthopedic issues or other issues. So I'm not sure there's much we can do about that, but that's just kind of a fact that that's going to be a long walk with groceries and such, especially because there is no other option for nearby parking along the street. You've got Hopper Trail behind you. I guess you could park over on Fennell maybe and walk through the dog park if you lived on one of the edges. But those are two issues. So that's one is an observation. The other is, do we really need to put the guest house in the parking lot right now? If it's a matter of feasibility, you need those units. Could you put them somewhere else? And to remove all that parking, that's pretty drastic. Yount Street is going to be pretty crowded. I don't think there's any question, which is kind of too bad because I lived over on Mulberry, and even when the community center parking lot gets filled, we don't really have a lot of parking problems. So we're going to have some issues, is my guess, regardless of, I know you've done a lot of good thinking about squeezing spaces and whatnot, but if you look at what's there now and you take out and hopefully we'll have even more people at Yountville fit. So anyway, that's my concern.
Following up along those lines, I mean, if we are looking at feasibility of a pool, and especially for the community that is going to present more parking needs, and also, what about Sundays when the church have we had conversations with the church, because they definitely dominate parking on this side of town, and we're not here to provide them with parking, but that's going to overflow into the community surrounding the area, which is already tested to its limits. So curious about that.
So those are two excellent questions. We definitely have been talking a lot about parking during this project. We are seeking the Goldilocks solution. Obviously, if the houses get too many, the parking grows with it. You shrink the impact and what's important. I want to step all the way back, and we started this conversation with some of our focus groups. Yountville is an incredible achievement, decades in the making, by not only the residents but council and ZDRB and other commissions making incredible decisions. You have a remarkable economic engine in town, especially for the size of the residents. So I put my hand up at some of these focus groups. Parking problems are terrific problems to have. They are the #1 request from, let's just say, economically depressed areas. They would love to have parking problems. So the second piece is like, okay, what do you do now that you have a parking problem? There is a zoning and a house and a general plan that discourages parking lots, especially on civic streets. It's not. I'm not going to give everybody an urban design lesson, but certainly in the last 25 years, towns have definitely wanted parking off of streets, off especially civic streets. That is a town-wide goal over time, especially around improvements. Of course, there was a parking lot in front of a school in 1970. When they sort of built a lot of these things. The housing, the apartments, essentially the apartments that are in the Commons House, formerly known as the Guest House, are there because they're right there, the closest to transit. That's actually one, and it has an elevator in that building. It's one of the most accessible in terms of shared driving, Uber pickups, certainly the bus, the B bus. That's the closest of any of the units to what I would say is the existing infrastructure, whether it's the Vine or the B bus, and our balancing act between sort of the parking and the number of houses and sort of placing them, we stretched it all the way out, and it really is more art than science. We just mostly had to sort of constantly make accounting for adding pieces and taking away dwellings, and for every little Rubik's Cube twist, we have another neighbor that says, oh, why did that appear all of a sudden at 4 stories? We definitely started at 4 stories and got pummeled during the Christmas dinners and conversations about buildings that seem too tall, especially on the edges. I'm not, yeah.
No, thank you. It's easy to over-explain parking. Let me start with that. And I think it's an important issue, but I just want to make 2 points and one correction. Having run a city that's polar opposite or very different, people are not craving parking problems. Parking problems are actually becoming really the third rail of the housing crisis solutions that we're seeing throughout mostly disadvantaged communities. So this is where, we are lucky, but not because we don't have a parking problem. I think, this is why I'll just keep saying strategies. We need to be talking about this. One thing we can do, and I think this becomes, again, a question. I don't want to defer to the operator and the funding, but I will, because really it gets down to we can control what someone signs on a lease. And we can dictate terms through CC&Rs, et cetera, of what happens for people that live here. It's very hard to deal with the church, to your point of the church. There's a famous saying in parking, there's a lot of parking industry people. One of the famous sayings is you can't build the church parking lot for Easter Sunday. So you have these issues which are sort of anecdotal in a way, of like, well, what if? And I think that's where you just have to have a good strategy, and you have to be mindful of what you control. We have talked to the church, just to answer your direct question. We have said, hey, listen, you can use the lot, but you can't put signs that direct your patrons to the lot. And I think to finally, amplify the point you made, in terms of urban design, it is really important. And I think the idea of setting it back in the Civic Arcade and all of those sorts of ideas, to me, are just really important beyond just the parking debate, to make sure this place is something, that is, fitting of Yountville and fitting of really good urban design and smart growth. So all of that factors into our thinking, and parking becomes, the third rail of every project I've ever worked on. It's just impossible to resolve it. But I think we'll be mindful of it, and I think we'll be very clear with the operator, like these are the rules. And the other thing I'll say, because we don't do enforcement, I did enforcement for 17 years on the parking. Sheriff does parking enforcement for us. I think everyone knows this that is in town. You have to start with enforcement. You really have to start with that question when you talk about strategies. Because if you're not enforcing it, forget about the strategy. It's like out the window. So that's the other piece of this puzzle that we need to be really smart about, is making sure the sheriff's prepared to help us with whatever issue or strategy we choose to move on.
Can I ask you one question though, Brad? Yeah. You're right. You could have people sign a lease that says you can only park one or no cars in our development. You can't really tell people you can't have your guests parking on this public street, or your spouse or your roommate, can you?
No.
So people will park on the public streets.
No question.
Okay.
Well, I just want to kind of weigh in on this too. I think that it's really not a matter of providing a parking spot for everybody who lives here. I think it's more important as a town and a community that we really provide safe and convenient ways for people to get around. Where do they need to go and how are they going to get there, versus, what's the minimum parking we need. And there's so many, we have been working on the Vine Trail for at least 2 decades. That is, a way of transporting, people up and down this valley. We've got one last segment that's now in the early design phase between Yountville and St. Helena, and then it will be complete. You can all the way up from, Yountville all the way to Napa, and that's the whole point of having the workforce housing right here in the middle of the valley. And at our next council meeting, we're going to be talking about the countywide climate action plan. The number one thing is cars up and down the road. When we, in this kind of speak, we call it VMT, vehicles, miles traveled. So there's so many of these outside, solutions that I think it's time that we start adopting some of those instead of just talking about them in these committees and, working on them in all these other organizations that we sit on. Council member McKee and I are on NVTA. We talk about all the buses and rearranging bus schedules to accommodate different types of people. There are van pools that you can sign up for and, sign up other people who want to go in the same direction. Maybe a lot of it is just communication of all these other opportunities out there to people about. We have somebody on our NVTA board who actually rides his bike from Calistoga, who's one of our board members, and tells us all about it over and over. So, and we're going to be kind of rewriting the B bus. So, I think there's a lot of opportunities that we really haven't really brought forward to really kind of talk about. That is the new Yountville and the new way that a lot of these workforce people are going to be living in the future. So just want to throw that in.
Just to add to that, and then we can keep going around. Let's see. There's a lot, because I think we've outlined 8 or 9 strategies. We've talked about car share. We've talked about bikes. We haven't. Usually this conversation gets into like flying cars and all these futuristic things, robotic parking. I've heard it all. I think it's you're right on, but I would say it's not the new Yountville. It's sort of the old Yountville, right? Because on some level, a lot more of the workforce lived here when they could afford to live here. Therefore, you did have the cars off the street. You did have a different sort of environment, which is where I feel like Yountville is most blessed. There's probably 2 things. One, the highway was diverted, so you have actually a really truly bikeable, walkable town. But more importantly, with the exception of the Vets Home, which is a slight exception, no one can tell me they can't walk to work. I do it every day. I see people drive to Yountville Fit, and thankfully I haven't seen Kay and Cindy do that yet. But
you just didn't see it.
But the point is, we all have anecdotes, right? And I think it's all like how we live, right? And it's like, this is not how we plan for the broader community. I mean, it feeds definitely your opinions and how you, but I think you all have to be, you have to just understand that this is the third rail. We're going to be really smart about it. We're going to also think about phasing to the point of the guest house or the commons house. I guess you renamed it, by the way. You're going to be targeted on that one. But I think the point is like that could be a secondary phase, as we think about parking and we sort of test things at Creekside Village. There's a lot of things we can do that we're thinking about. I just want the community to know this isn't going to just be like this haphazard approach, which is, again, the underbelly of affordable housing. Like the Redwood City example that you provided, I was kind of like, God, don't do that, Brendan. But it is true. There are these projects, massive projects that are going into, I'm going to put urban communities in quotes because that's defined by a bus that arrives every 15 minutes. This makes you an urban community. Fortunately, we're 30 minutes, so don't press MVTA too hard. Once we go into 15 minutes, it sort of creates a whole other challenge for local control. But these are all, again, these are really good conversations. We are I am very mindful, I will tell you that for sure. And we have a good team that understands this. But these are all decisions that are good to hear. I truly think, I know we have time, but what I feel like the team needs to hear right now is more of like the conversation about the pool. Because the pool is unique in that it is not form-based architecture, okay? A pool is not form-based, right? A pool can't convert, well, I guess it used to convert into a skate park, but those are the old days. A pool is a pool, and we should be making sure that when we come, and obviously keeping options open during CEQA, but, as we make our way to Funding Junction, I need to know, from the community, which I define as the 5 of you, with all of the input from the boards and commissions and everyone else, what do we want to do? Because there's 3 very different options that are being discussed right now. And I don't feel like I have any clarity. I've heard really good arguments on all sides, with the exception it doesn't seem like anyone wants a private pool. But the debate between a municipal pool and sort of a quasi-municipal pool run by an operator is an important debate for right now. And we will talk about it at PRAC. I encourage us to get to the point where people are weighing those options and we feel comfortable coming back to you with, what the community wants versus just a lot of anecdotes about because I know wish I could swim, and I could talk about me, but I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about really the five of you, and everyone else, of course. So, but Robin, go ahead.
Thank you. What I would encourage us to continue to do is just be flexible. I think one of the things you've shown us through this train metaphor and all that is we're moving down a path where we're finding out more information, and that we should be flexible. And what we've heard today, there's suggestions like with the pool. I don't see any. I see as we become an older community or as a blue community that a fitness pool that is a lap pool is what it would be of value in the future. And even when I was younger, I took courses in college where there was fitness classes where you use weights and you exercise. We all are at some point in the future going to need that for knees and backs and things like that. So the mayor suggested we talk with Donovan at the fitness with Yountville Fit. I mean, I think there must be some ways we can consider options where you maybe take fitness classes through Yountville Fit, but it's open certain times for lap swimming to the public in general. That there just seems to be creative ways to figure this out, and not to. I think we should consider those options, but be open to different ways it would be valuable to have a lap pool in the community. In the same way, I would say about parking is let's be open and consider options, because we don't know in the future how young people will travel, whether the B bus, we can find a way that it can be used maybe a couple times a week to go to Napa to shop, or whether there might be some operator that'll put some e-vehicles in this parking lot and people will just get in the e-vehicle and take it to Napa. I mean, they won't need a vehicle. So, I mean, I like where we're headed. We're allowing flexibility. We're planning, but parking is always a concern that people have, and we need to talk about it and figure ways to accommodate it, but also to realize there'll be other solutions in the future that will probably affect us and maybe allow for less parking. And certainly, as we've talked about before, this town has taken this opportunity to develop this property and to include the community in the planning of this property. If a private builder was building this and was using the Housing Accountability Act to build apartment complexes, the state would have said, fine, build 50 units and you can put 3 parking spots in there. Where we'd have no control. So we're in really the driver's seat talking about this project, and I think we all benefit. The community benefits from this process. So thank you.
So maybe just 5 minutes to wrap up. So we have a regular council meeting at 3. So we can maybe somebody who hasn't been able to talk yet, just.
Don't get personal.
Go ahead, Lee. What would you like to say?
Jesus, I've been sitting here for 15 minutes listening to you guys. I didn't think that was what we were here for. So now that I've been cranky, so I don't know if it's feasible to do this or not, but I'm not interested in a pool that's not a municipal pool. I think it should be available to everybody in town, and not necessarily as part of fees for a fitness center that not everybody wants to do. The real thing I've been waiting for is that I know this is back to parking again, which you may not want to do, but I know my son and a lot of people his age are not interested in having a car or using a car. They don't like them. And given that, I think, well, another aspect of that is when I came here, people who worked here or lived here worked here. There was a lot of that, and it was really valuable, and it was a great place to be because of that. I don't think the demand for that ever went away. It's been here the whole time. It's still here. And that's why I bring up young people, because I think there's a huge pool of people who would love to work here who won't or can't because they can't afford to be here. That's what this housing is all about, and why parking is less of an issue than we think it is, I think. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys have any data that tries to tap into that change in paradigm with young people?
I just think, I mean, there's always data, but parking is one of the, I keep saying, it's just, you can go on and on about all the strategies and what impact they might have. I do think actually the conversation at 3 o'clock related to the regional climate action adaptation plan is relevant. Because if we do want to save the planet, like this is another conversation, right? But I do think, yeah, I mean, it's funny because I see Ian buzzing around in his scooter. We might have to set speed limits for scooters in town.
It'll only go 20, so.
No, I understand. But yeah, I know people like scooters. Scooters are a whole nother debate. Like, I mean, truthfully, I was saying earlier, part of the reason La Jolla is trying to succeed from San Diego is because of scooters. And I'm not even exaggerating, because of all these little shared scooters that came in and basically, polluted the beaches in people's minds, right? So you'll never kind of get to that, okay, empirical analysis that says this is the Goldilocks solution. So I'm not trying to be dismissive. I'm just trying to tell you there's so many facets to this. It really comes down to making the smart decisions. And I think to the point on the pool, I do think I will do my best. I have talked to Donovan. It's another sort of challenging analysis because who knows, like how many people would join if it was just a swim membership? How much would they pay? The most important thing, to your point, is, which I hate to say, but everyone knows this is true, anything is feasible with subsidies. Like this gets to the question of how much does the council want to subsidize something. A municipal pool will cost a lot more than, because you're required to have lifeguards, you're required to have safety measures that go far beyond what Donovan would be required to do. So I will attempt to do that analysis with Sam, who ran a pool for a while, so that you see here are your options and here are the price tags related to those options. Because these are value judgments. These are not just like, hey, I want this because, I don't know, like I want a pool. Like I can say I want a pool. I don't know how much I would pay for it. I'd have to think about that and talk to my wife about it relative to our monthly budget. Like, can I pay $100 a month to swim at Yountville Fit, or do I have to go down to, I want to call it Vision Quest, but yeah, I mean, the options that are amongst us, whether it's where you live or where you travel to. So I do feel, and I want everyone, I apologize for you getting cranky. The mic was always open. I think to round it up and to sort of kind of, if we can.
Councilmember Reeves wants just 1 minute.
So now you'll know that husbands and wives don't always agree.
Ditto.
Okay. Just in answer to your question about the pool, I'm wondering if there is some sort of hybrid method that we could talk about for the pool, one that is driven by Yountville Fit, but is augmented by maybe pay per time for residents, because the pool at the Veterans Home was not free to residents. We paid a fee to go. So how much is that worth to us to have it down here, number one, and to be able to go whenever we wanted to? So those are kind of questions I'd like to ask Donovan. How much could he manage, and how much could we manage as far as subsidy goes?
Sure.
Right.
Well, just to finish on that, because one, I don't think Donovan is the man behind the curtain that has that answer, right? I mean, he's going to have to hopefully pull his membership and try to get some true data. But I would also say we're already doing that. That's what Yountville Fit is, right? We are subsidizing Yountville Fit so that you can, have a $75 membership as a local. Or whatever the rates are. The rates all depend on, those that are members' usage and what type of member you are. So we're doing that. It's just now there's a pool. And I will just say it's not going to pay for itself.
Right.
People will not pay for pools to the point, there's a barrier there, which is just like, it's too much. So
right.
It's just a question of how much you want to subsidize it, if you want to do it. So go ahead.
Right.
I just want to make a really quick comment that many people have already heard me make, but I'm going to make it again at this workshop. It's a chicken and egg. Do we plan everything we want and then decide, can we pay for it, and do we want to pay for it? And do we want to pay for it gets to the subsidy question. Typically, a private developer, and we're approaching this, we're developing it ourselves. We've implicitly or explicitly made a decision, at least so far, with all that's been drawn up and all the money we've spent, is on a plan that does not involve any federal or state funding or community housing funding. So the only reason I love the development, but and it isn't a chicken and egg. Do you look at what you want to pay for or can pay for and then go there, or do you design this beautiful project and then decide? So I just want to say on the subsidy issue, I would really like to know what the subsidy for this project is. I know we have Measure S, so that's what that's for, but and I know we're going to have rentals, so I get that. But how much of this will affect our general fund budget, and what will the cost be for the things that aren't rentable or generating income? And part of the reason I asked this, and I pulled this out and I'll pass it around, but this was done in the last budget cycle over the 5-year forecast before we even bought this project, and now we are, I don't know, I'm just guesstimating 13, 15 million into this. We were already projecting in 2031 our general fund revenues would be less than our expenditures. So this is not a moot question, and I know I'm supposed to wait till funding junction, but I just have to say this. When we're talking about a subsidy for the swimming pool, the much larger issue is, and I'm not against subsidizing any of this, I just want to be sure that, one, we can borrow the money. I'm pretty sure we can, because as Brendan says, we are a very wealthy town. But is that where we want to spend our money? And I think the answer that I've been given is, well, we have lots of reserves. Well, reserves are really for when the, excuse my language, the SHIT hits the fan. What happens when we're just in a medium, small downturn is, if we have this ongoing commitment, we have to start either spending less on other community activities or cutting back on our town staff, our town budget, our benefits. So I do understand the chicken and the egg, but I do find it kind of odd we're talking about subsidizing a pool and what's involved with that when we have no idea what any of this is going to cost us. And we do have a little bit of an indication that the town, as it was before we spent the $13 million and now going into this, already was projecting our general fund revenues were going to be less than our expenditures. So I just hope people keep their eye on that. I know 90% of this is housing, but there are a lot of community amenities here that are going to require maintenance and much more than what we have out there with a very simple dog park and a pretty simple Yountville fit with no bathrooms, which works just fine for me, but we're talking about rehabilitating that, expending a lot of money on that. We're talking about building and people do need a place to wash their clothes. That would be a real issue if I was going to move into one of these without a washer and dryer. But a building with more community space and a roof garden and then an amphitheater. And so I just think we need to pay attention to that. And I'm not entirely comfortable waiting till funding mountain as we continue to spend a lot of money and go through Sequoia Junction on a project that we have no idea what the pro forma looks like, which if you're a private developer, and we're basically deciding to be our own developer, that would be what you would want to know. What is this going to cost us, and what are the revenues going to be, and how much short will we be on that?
I'd like to kind of wrap this up. We definitely need to take a break before our 3 o'clock meeting. We have 5 minutes. So do you have one final 10-second comment?
10-second is that, in gaining control of this place, we will have an asset in this town, and for the first time, we will be able to revisit that line of the red demarcation saying that the general fund is going to overcome the TOT. So this will make our reliance on funds from the guests that come here a lot less.
Have you seen those numbers yet?
No, none of us have seen the numbers, but if we're renting, that is going to be income. And I think that's why we hired a financial advisor who is in the process of doing that work. So we can, talk about what we think it's going to be all day long. We hired somebody specifically that specializes in municipalities because we're not the experts. We hired experts. So I think it's really early to say on one hand, I want a pool, and then on the other hand to say, well, I don't want to subsidize. We're not not talking about going into our reserves. Those are there for a specific reason, and nobody has had those conversations saying, let's opening up that bank account.
No, and I just want to say one more thing, and I'm going to finish, and this is really quick.
I really need to ask for.
Go to the bathroom.
I need to ask for a motion to adjourn to our council meeting in 4 minutes. Can I get a motion? Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Thank you, everybody. See you back in 4 minutes.